Welcome to another Sell Well online video, and today I'm going to be talking about the so-called Netflix tax. So let's make a couple of things clear from the beginning. So the first thing is that this is applicable to people selling on eBay Australia. It doesn't matter if you have a business or a store or you're just selling one item. It affects people selling on eBay Australia. So if you're not from Australia, this video probably isn't directly applicable to you, but I still feel that it is worth watching because it's important that you understand what your overseas customers are experiencing, and also because I do believe that this very well may be applied to other countries around the world in the future. So I think it is worth understanding what governments around the world are actually trying to, do or implement. But I just say again, this is something specifically for people in or selling online in Australia. So I guess the first question is, well, why is it called the Netflix tax? So Netflix, for those of you who don't know, it's basically an online streaming service. So you pay like a monthly fee, and you can watch movies and dramas and things like that on online on the internet. Now in Australia we have the GST, which is the goods and services tax, which is currently 10%, has been for a long time. And that basically means that if you are an end consumer of a product or a service, i.e., a good or a service, then you pay 10%. Now, a lot of the time we don't see that tax, but we are actually paying it. So if you go to the supermarket and you buy, I don't know, a can of tuna, then you are actually paying 10% GST tax on that product. Now, what the government is actually, or I guess the government's chain of thinking, is that with Netflix, there are people who are, watching movies or dramas, i.e., they are consuming that product or that service, and therefore they should be paying tax on that. Now, there's actually been, I was just reading online. I'm going to start flipping around some articles here, but it actually, I was reading here that Ray Moore. I'll put links to all these articles, by the way, in the description. But it says here, Ray Morgan estimated in January that the streaming giant had almost 2.3 million household subscriptions in Australia. Nielsen put the number at 2.8 million in February. So two companies had a crack at estimating how many Australians use Netflix. I personally don't actually use Netflix. But these are the numbers that they came up with. So pretty big difference. That's like nearly what 20-25% difference in estimation. But that's what So clearly there are a lot of people using Netflix in Australia. So the government is basically saying, well, we should be taxing these people because they are consuming a product or a service within Australia. Therefore, they should be paying GST. Now, they've applied that to a whole bunch of other things. So this is actually going to apply to this is going to apply to online, basically online services or online businesses that are not actually Australian businesses. So if it's an Australian company or Australian business, like now I could be wrong on this, but this is my understanding of it, like carsales.com, then they are an Australian business, so therefore nothing's going to change there. But for things like Amazon, Netflix, eBay, that kind of stuff, they're overseas businesses. It is going to affect you. Now, in this video, I'm going to focus specifically on eBay, but the principle is going to be very similar. So let's talk about eBay. So basically, this is going to come into effect from the 1st of July 2017, and the fee will apply, or the GST will apply to fees on eBay. So it's very clear to make this distinction. You are going to be paying GST on the fees that you pay to eBay Australia or eBay, not on the actual overall cost of the item. So if you sold an item for $100, then you would pay roughly 10% fees to eBay, just as you always have. which is pretty high, of course, but that's eBay's profit or eBay's money. It does vary based on if you have a store package or not, or if you, depending on what category or what type of product it is, eBay fees do vary based on the product, but it's around 10%. So you would pay your $10 or your 10% on that $100 sale to eBay. Now you pay 10% GST, or from 1st of July 2017, now you will pay 10% GST on that eBay fee. So you wouldn't pay an extra $10 GST, which is 10% of the $100. You would pay 10% GST on the 10% eBay fee. So they actually use an example. If you go to this page, if I can find it, here we go. So if you sell an item for $100 with free postage, you are currently paying $9.90 in final value fees. From 1st of July 2017, if you sell an item for $100 with free postage, you will pay $10.89 in final fees. So that $10.89 is $9.90 times 1.1, which is the GST tax, which is 99 cents, which turns to $10.89. So as another example, I recently sold an item on eBay. It was a pretty expensive item. It sold for about $700. So I paid eBay, roughly 10% fees, which was $70. If I had sold that from the 1st of July 2017, I would also pay GST on that eBay fee, which would be another $7. So that is the difference. So for most people selling on eBay, it's going to mean that you're going to pay an extra, roughly about 1% of the total sale price. So if you're wondering, if you do put a lot of volume through eBay and you're worried about this, pull out your invoice from last month, and you could either times your total revenue by 1%, or the more accurate way is how much did you pay in fees to eBay, multiply that number by 10%. That's how much you're going to have to start paying eBay or GST from the 1st of July 2017. So it is going to make selling on eBay more expensive, and I'm sure sellers then are going to look at, well, we're going to pass that on to our consumers or the people buying on eBay. Now, if you have an ABN and you actually have like a legitimate registered business with the government and the ATO, then you can key that number in. I'm sure you would have got a message already from eBay, and you will be exempt from paying this new so-called Netflix tax, and you would be taxed as you always have. Up until, or as you always have under your business. So I think that's really like the main thing. So again, I stress to you that this will impact anybody. It doesn't matter if you're just cleaning out your garage or your closet or whatever, and you find something old that you want to sell on eBay. From 1st of July, you're going to be paying 10% GST 10% GST tax. Now, the other good news is that, and I say that sarcastically, is that if you are Australian and you import items from overseas, or I mean, import's probably a strong word, but if you buy something from eBay overseas and you get it sent to Australia, then you don't pay tax on it unless the value of that item is over $1,000. From the 1st of July 2018, so what I was talking about, the Netflix tax, that's 1st of July 2017. From 1st of July 2018, you are now going to have to start paying tax on getting items into Australia regardless of the value. So again, up until now, the government has said if the value of the item is less than $1,000, we won't tax you. And they've done that because they kind of consider that as, as like, personal use. But again, from 1st of July 2018, they're saying, look, if you buy anything from overseas, you're going to have to pay like an import tax on that item. So if you're looking at buying anything from overseas, particularly something that's expensive, make sure you do it in the next 12 months, because from 1st of July 2017, 18, you're going to have to pay tax on that as well. So I think that's really like the main thing I sort of wanted to cover. Now, you may be thinking, well, is there any loophole that I can, get around from this? I don't really know. I mean, I'm not an expert on taxation and stuff like this, but I think one loophole you could possibly do is, even if you're registered on eBay Australia, you can still list items on other eBay sites. So there's nothing stopping you from listing an item on eBay Australia, um, or on eBay, UK or whatever. Um, in fact, I think actually this was asked somewhere else, but yeah, so you can do that. But I think my understanding is there's two criteria. So your address can't be registered in Australia, and you can't be listing items on eBay Australia. So, for example, you might have a friend in the US or a relative, so you might change your registered address on eBay to their address, and then you start listing your items in US dollars. In theory, that would get you exempt from the tax, but I don't think that's really going to work because PayPal are just as greedy, and the difference. So currently, yeah, basically the fees that you pay PayPal to convert your money from, say, US dollars back to Australia is much higher than 1%. And I say 1% because that's effectively how much you're going to be paying more on your revenue, or how much you sell things, because it's 10% on the eBay fees, which are about 10%. Um, or yeah, so it's actually not going to be more cost efficient to do that. So that was kind of really the only loophole that I could could um, could think of. Um, but I don't know. Maybe somebody else has other ideas. So yeah, I think that was really the main thing I wanted to cover. Now, I guess just sort of maybe rambling on a little bit at the end, so I might just sort of finish on this note. You might sort of have the question, well, is this fair? Why is the government doing this? Is this right? So I guess the government's going to market this as saying, well, we're cracking down on, overseas companies avoiding tax. This isn't going to make them avoid tax. They're still going to be paying their own taxes the way they always do, which is using offshore subsidiaries and that sort of thing. So it's not going to make eBay or Amazon or Netflix. It's not going to make them start. They're not going to be losing any money from this. The only reason they might lose money is if people go off their sites and do other things, which I'll talk about in a moment. So it's not going to make these companies pay more tax. They're passing it straight on. Like, the consumer is who's paying it here. So, okay, well, is it going to make people stop using these websites or these services? I don't think so. Is it going to help protect bricks and mortar stores and things like that? I don't think so. Personally, the only reason that I buy things from eBay is if it's like a old item or a collectible item or a secondhand item that I can't get from a shop locally, or it's a product that is only available overseas. It might be like a new pair of Nike sneakers, or I don't know, makeup from Europe or something like that you can't get locally. Um, that's personally, I think that, so for me, it's not going to change anything like that. And there's people in the media like Jared Harvey and saying, we got to protect local jobs and things. Look, they have an argument, they have a point, but I don't really I don't really see how that's going to help, to be honest. I don't think it's necessarily going to encourage people. I can say personally, it's not going to encourage me to go, oh, okay, I'm going to go and buy, from this store, around my house. If they have what I want, then I'll buy from them. If they don't, then I'm going to go online. And there was a nice quote that I found, just sort of looking around online, which was here from. Um, Oh yeah, so actually I wanted to mention this as well. So the government's looking to raise $300 million in revenue over 4 years. That's coming straight out of your pocket as a consumer. It's not coming out of eBay's pocket or Amazon's pocket or Netflix's pocket. You as a consumer will be paying that. Um, so the quote that I want to mention here was from Aaron Turner, Director of Campaigns at Choice. So he said, competition isn't an end in itself. It's meant to be a mechanism by which we deliver benefits to consumers. And I tend to be maybe a little bit too harsh in this because, you know, it's not quite as simple as this, but I think that's the world of business. It's survival of the fittest. If somebody can provide a product or a service cheaper or better or faster than other people, then they'll make money and they'll succeed. And if you're not, then you're going to go out of business. It's the same argument about, well, why are department stores going out of business in Australia? Because they've always had very expensive things and they've had a lot of overheads and things. So things like technology and the internet have made things cheaper and more efficient. So why shouldn't consumers have the benefits of that? Are jobs and things going to be lost? Well, look back at history, and I'm not necessarily saying yes or no, but just to use an extreme example, 100 years ago, when the car was invented, there would have been a whole bunch of companies that built horse and carts. They went out of business. People probably had a problem with it then, but that created a whole bunch of jobs in the automotive industry and making roads and bridges and all sorts of things. So, people are still going to consume stuff. But the question is, well, are they going to consume them, or are we going to be creating jobs in Australia or overseas? Well, all of that revenue that the government is getting, I don't think they're going to be investing that back into the community or back into local businesses. I highly doubt that. Is it going to make people encourage to buy locally? I don't know. Maybe the e-bag tax from 1st of July 2018, it might. But there's going to be a whole lot of people that are paying tax for no reason. Your aunt in America sends you a birthday present, like a new pair of Nike sneakers worth $200. You have to pay tax on that. Why do you have to pay tax on that? I sort of feel like the system works now. If it's over $1,000, if these are large businesses, people that like Target or Kmart or whoever, shipping large quantities of stuff, they're paying their tax already. And what about the the Netflix tax? Is it going to stop people using eBay? Is it going to stop people using Amazon and Netflix? Personally, I don't think so. But I'm interested what people out there think. Um, I hope that this video does create some discussion. Certainly, as I said, other governments and other governments around the world are considering this. Quite a few governments have rejected that. Australia, though, I can't help but feel that this is just a cash grab from the Australian government, putting their tin cup out and saying, we're going to scrape for every penny. Like, we've already got the big guys, but now we're really going to target the consumer, and we're gonna scrape for every little penny. But that's just my opinion. Regardless, I stress again, from 1st of July 2017, you will now start paying 10% on your eBay fees. 10% GST on your eBay fees. That will also affect other online businesses or other. Let me actually. So government. So basically any non-Australian business that you consume their product or service in Australia, you'll be paying 10% GST on the fees that you pay those companies from 1st of July 2017. And from 1st of July 2018, you will be paying an import or GST tax on any item that you bring in from into Australia, even if it's for personal use. I hope this video is interesting. If you have any questions, or certainly if you have any opinions or your own thoughts about this issue, whether you're from Australia or not, I would love to hear in the comments below. So thank you very much, and happy selling.